The Stoics didn't think intelligence meant stuffing your brain with trivia. For them, being smart was about how clearly you handled your emotions, instincts, and responsibilities. When they spoke of foolishness, they meant being out of touch with reality, making the same mistakes over and over because you'd rather feel good than think clearly. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all described this type of person in detail. Line up their descriptions and you get something more revealing than any IQ score. Start with the guy who reacts to everything. A headline, a rude tweet, gossip from next door. He jumps from one thing to the next like a dog yanked around by its leash. Epictetus says you can spot him by the way his eyes dart around. He's always tuned in to what's happening out there, so nothing inside him ever settles. Then there's the praise addict. He glows only when someone's clapping. Marcus calls him a slave, begging for approval every day because yesterday's likes have expired. You'll see him shift his values depending on who's watching. Right next to him is the chronic overpromiser. He talks big, delivers little, and leaves others cleaning up the mess while he spins excuses. Seneca says this guy would rather deal with shame later than be honest now, which shows he can't even think straight about time. Then you have the permanent spectator. He laughs at everyone's failures, cheers for the drama, and learns nothing because he's too busy judging. So he ends up repeating the same mistakes he mocked in others. There's also the grudge collector, the walking museum of old insults. Marcus says holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. A wise person throws it out like spoiled food. A fool seasons it and saves it for winter. And look out for the guy who can't sit still. Give him a quiet room and he'll reach for a screen, a drink, a distraction, anything to avoid being alone with his own thoughts. Epictetus calls this a fear of self-reflection, which he says is the clearest sign of a mind that's still under construction. Watch for the person who always blames the world. Their first move is to list everything outside their control. The Stoics say this is cowardice in disguise. It protects the ego at the cost of real growth. Then there's the fortune worshipper who thinks success means virtue and collapse means failure. Seneca watched people kneel to Nero one month and plot to kill him the next. Both groups got crushed when the winds changed. Only those who built on character stayed standing. Beware the novelty chaser, the one who's always on to the next trend, app, or hack, without ever finishing what they started. Marcus warns that this constant change keeps you shallow because it never truly registers. Skill takes time to simmer, and avoid the quiet comparer, the guy who's always measuring himself against others. Paycheck, body, house. He rarely asks whether what he's measuring actually matters. Another sign of foolishness, confusing tools for meaning, money, influence, even fitness, all useful when aimed at something bigger, but the fool hoards them, protects them, even when they rot unused. Seneca joked that misers die stung with honey still in the hive. And then there's fake kindness, generosity that only shows up when people are watching. Epictetus calls this theatre, not character. You'll also meet the professional debater. Loves arguing philosophy, never applies any of it. The Stoics didn't write for show, they wrote for action. Talking without doing is like wearing cologne without showering. It smells clever until it wears off. And near him is the overly focused expert who forgets he's mortal. Marcus couldn't stand that type. He said if you obsess over minor details but ignore death, you leave the back door wide open to disaster. And then there's the guy who rushes everything. He travels the world to fix what he hasn't fixed in himself. Seneca says don't move until you've checked your motives, or you're just dragging chaos with you. Another red flag is not learning from history. The fool watches documentaries but misses the message. Epictetus said memory without action is like a ship full of cargo that never sails, looks impressive, gets nowhere. Pay attention to the man who thinks he's too smart for hard work. The Stoics trained their bodies on purpose. They knew weak bodies can't carry strong minds for long. And avoid the guy who treats rest like it's a sin. He fills every spare moment with junk, shows, apps, noise, when he could be using that time to get ready for real challenges. Watch out for rage disguised as power. Marcus says anger is what happens when your inner world gets overrun by children holding adult weapons. Real strength is staying steady when it would be easier to explode. On the flip side is the avoider, the one who mistakes silence for peace. Seneca says wolves go after sheep that stay quiet. The wise person knows when to speak, when to listen, and acts regardless of applause. Another clue, the person who skips small responsibilities, the parking ticket, the unreturned text, the promise to call. Epictetus says forgetting the small things is how you train yourself to betray the big ones. And there's the guy who raves about causes overseas, but rolls his eyes at helping his neighbor. That's Nero, loving music more than feeding people. And watch how someone reacts to feedback. The wise ask for it because they want to stop suffering early. The fool takes it as a personal attack. Notice too the person who rides emotional roller coasters all day, letting their mood be shaped by traffic, texts, or markets. Marcus says the smart build their emotions on things that don't shift with the wind. Fools also spend money they don't have to impress people they don't know. Marcus said that's like selling tomorrow's peace for a compliment today. On the other extreme is hoarding money and starving your own joy, thinking worst-case scenarios into existence. Seneca says fortune favors minds, not mattresses full of cash. Fools treat time like it's unlimited and talk like words are free. They put off seeing friends, exercising, or just being quiet until it's too late. The Stoics flipped the schedule. Mornings were for the soul, the rest followed. You can also spot the fool who mocks philosophy, quotes memes, skims headlines, praises multitasking, and never finishes anything. Epictetus locked up students writing slates until they could explain why they wanted to learn. Without clear reasons, motivation becomes just noise. Another type just follows trends, doesn't think, doesn't pause. The Stoic learns how to bend without breaking, keeps roots even in storms. And then there's the vacation planner who dreams 20 years ahead, but wastes 20 minutes now. Seneca said life is long if you use it, short if you waste it. More warning signs exploding over minor stuff but ignoring what really matters. Blaming tools instead of mastering them. Worrying about software glitches instead of upgrading your mind. Spending now and suffering later, or delaying happiness until everything's perfect. The Stoic learns to enjoy today without gambling tomorrow. You'll also notice the control freak who can't act without a guarantee. Stoics aim for solid plans, not perfect ones. The flip side is arrogance, thinking luck always goes their way. Marcus reminds us, nature doesn't care about ego. Be careful around those who can't say sorry. Epictetus called apologies emotional hygiene. Skip the cleanup and everything starts to rot. Also, beware of people who always believe wild conspiracies. They're often overwhelmed by reality and reach for simple stories. The Stoic patiently searches for truth, knowing it takes real effort to understand. Gratitude matters too. The fool forgets who helped him, claiming he did everything alone. Seneca said gratitude is the root of all virtue. Without it, your soul withers. The same goes for the guy who mocks other people's struggles. Stoics believe in shared humanity. Helping others strengthens the whole web. Another trait, gossip. If someone talks behind others' backs, they'll likely do it to you too. Marcus said, speak like the person is in the room. And avoid chronic flatterers. Their praise feels cheap because it is. Epictetus warned, anyone who flatters easily betrays easily. Also foolish, ignoring sleep, skipping meals, pushing through stress while bragging about the hustle. The Stoics took care of their bodies because a tired brain makes bad calls. The same goes for escaping through alcohol or constant stimulation. When you won't sit with your thoughts, your judgment dulls. There's also the person who turns every look or silence into drama. Seneca says this kind of mind burns its own house down, and Marcus warns against assuming you know why someone did something. Focus on your own motives first. Some people stop learning once things get uncomfortable. Epictetus demanded that students follow logic all the way through, even when it hurt. Fools stop when it challenges their pride. Some doubt science but believe gossip, because gossip makes them feel important. Foolish parents treat kids like projects instead of people. They force their own dreams onto them and ignore who they really are. And finally, the fool can't handle uncertainty, has to label everything, has to be right. Marcus said philosophy thrives in questions, not just answers. Other signs? Owning books but reading none, confusing volume with wisdom, counting years instead of meaning, choosing revenge over clean justice, ignoring better methods out of pride. In the end, the foolish person is just reacting. Every input triggers an impulse. No filter, no brake, no direction. The Stoics train for the opposite. They learn to pause between thought and action. They aim their energy where it counts, accept what they can't control, and feel peace when their actions match their values. Seneca knew people would call that kind of discipline boring, but he replied, "A dull blade bends, a sharp one cuts. The traits listed above reveal stupidity in others, true, but they aren't meant for them, they are meant for you. Use these signs to check yourself. The line between wise and foolish runs through all of us, and the Stoic sharpens that line every day by choosing which side to breathe life into."